this. So I would like to have the speakers, the distributed speakers to talk about this. So before other speakers give their opinions, I will just give some illustration about anti-Semitism. You are probably not unfamiliar with these pictures, right? So these historical pictures and even current pictures is the typical evidences of the anti-Semitism from many hundred years ago, start from hundreds of years ago, and currently. And also, everybody knows 100 years, almost 8 years ago, the terrible Holocaust by Nazis, and the last one, the right picture you can see, it's terrible. It says it's not Chinese. It's not Chinese. It's both anti-Semitism and Anti-Sinoism. Because it's both anti-Chinese and anti-Jew, right? So, so we are facing actually more this kind of activity and even comments online on the social, especially on the social media. It's as Chinese. I really feel pity that Chinese people experience lots of hardship and discrimination and also massacre over the last 100 years. You can see this first picture, the left picture, was a cover picture of American magazine. The second one, maybe not many people knows about that. It just happened recently. It just happened 24, 25 years ago. It happened in Indonesia. Almost 1 million, maybe hundreds of thousands of Chinese people were slaughtered or massacred. And a very, very extremely cruel way. Recently, we can see because of the COVID, because of the COVID situation all over the world, lots of Chinese people in other countries, in overseas, faced lots of attacks. You see this picture, this man is attacking an old Chinese man. This Chinese man is 91 years old. How can you imagine? 91 years old man was attacked by somebody. Crazy. And the right picture is Chinese people not allowed. Chinese people not allowed into this store. Why? Because it's a crystal clear discrimination to Chinese people. It's happened in Japan. Don't misunderstood me. Don't misunderstand me. I've been to Japan. I'm not against Japan. I've been to Japan. I meet lots of friendly people, but I'm sure there are lots of people in Japan and US, and Europe and other countries. They are against China. Sometimes they're not so they are just ignorant about the Chinese people and Chinese culture, but maybe also they have some bad experience with Chinese people. But, we all have a bad experience with other people, but we cannot just discriminate a nation, a people based on our bad experience. So this is something we need to think about, we need to talk about, we need to advocate to combating all kinds of these discriminations. try to be a human. Now, I would like to, the first speaker, I would love to Professor Shushin, because I know Professor Shushin for many years. He's the expert on Judaic studies. He's the head of Jewish studies at Nanjing University. He was also of the Jewish Encyclopedia, which was published in 1996. He even published a book about anti-Semitism and how and why. It was published in 1990. He was also introduced as one of the most prominent scholars in China, Jewish studies scholars in China. He got his PhD honorable doctorate degree from Bailan University. So, Professor Xu, welcome to join our forum, and ladies, tell us your opinion about anti-Semitism. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you, Benjamin. Good afternoon, everyone. Very honored to be at this forum of 2021. And Benjamin and I know each other for many years. I'm asked to talk about anti-Semitism, as we being aware that in this century, though it's a new century, the anti-Semitism gets rise. You see, at least from time to time, the anti-Semitism get more popular in many ways. In order to counter anti-Semitism, especially for the rise of anti-Semitism, I believe, first of all, we need to identify or know what kind of action or speech belong to anti-Semitism. I believe in 2015, at International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, give a definition of anti-Semitism, which I believe makes sense. First of all, in radical ideology to describe Jews or attack Jews, that was anti-Semitism. And with the exaggeration of prejudice against Jews, to say Jews control the world economy and the medium and those kind of things was considered anti-Semitism. And deny the Holocaust or Holocaust deny facts was part of anti-Semitism. And also to strip Jews, to strip the right of Jewish people to establish national country and to do anything against or boycott Israel or describe Israel policy as the Nazis policy or compare them together was considered anti-Semitism. And of course, the rise of anti-Semitism has a lot to do with tradition. Sometimes we said that prejudice in the past or old prejudice, old traditional anti-Semitism could generate new anti-Semitism. Second, was very much impacted by the Middle East conflict, because Jews or Jewish country, Israel in Middle East conflict is one country against those traditional, we say 21 or 22 Arab countries. So the medium gives a different coverage, which has an impact or influenced a lot of people. And of course, and there were, we call it new leftist ideology, which gives more sympathy to what we call the weak side, to consider the conflict between Israel and Arab world. And Arab world, especially Palestinian people, were considered the weak people, so more sympathy was showed to them, and by doing so, they attack Israel. In this way, we believe that action was also considered as anti-Semitism. Therefore, today we need to realize those tendencies. Anti-Semitism more or less combined with anti-Zionism or anti-Israel. Secondly, they use different ways, or use newspaper, television, to even social media, especially social media, to spread anti-Semitism. Of course, there were also many individuals and who did not really understand a lot of historic events. For instance, the Middle East conflict, the war, independent war in more than 70 years ago. And those who did not understand how it happened were, generally speaking, blame Jews or Jewish Israel start the war, because Jews wanted to establish their own country and then cause the war. And also the Six-Day War, for instance, and then a lot of people use that as excuse to attack Israel, first of all, then to attack all Jews, because many Jewish people supported Israel as a Jewish country, so get a lot of hatred. And also more recently, the East War happened in Gaza, for instance, and when the Hamas attacked Israel through missiles, and then Israel counteract or bomb their target, that caused a lot of hatred, especially social media, and to blame Jews killing a lot of Palestinians. And also, I believe we should be aware, like the rightist in the world, not like old time, but still play the role in producing anti-Semitism, or either speech or action. But the leftist or new leftist in the world, and then shows more influence, because like we used to say, politically correct, and to attack or spread anti-Semitism ideas were considered political correctness. Therefore, we need to counterattack those concepts so that we can really, among many nations or peoples, to counter attack those anti-Semitic either speech or actions. And one of the examples to show the rise of anti-Semitism was also that medium's coverage. I have data which the survey says the BBC as one of the major news medium in the world has many more negative coverage about Jews. For instance, in 2003, the whole year, the coverage about Israel was 85% were negative. And then the 15% were neutral. Positive, none. So those kind of coverage, you see, and had a great impact for the rise of contemporary anti-Semitism worldwide, that I believe. Therefore, we should be very careful about this. And also the movement we call BDS movement in the last 15 years, and played more and more important role to boycott Israel or cause advocate sanctions against Israel, including like sports. You see, when there was many sports activities and they refused to play together with Israel athletes or Israel teams, for instance. So those kind of things we should be, if everybody aware of those actions was actually part of anti-Semitism, then I believe that we could reduce or impact of anti-Semitism around the world, especially among many young people, to be aware of what are anti-Semitism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Xu. I recommend everybody, if you are interested deeply in this topic, anti-Semitism, you try to find the book online. It's an old book. It's about 26, 20, yeah, it's about 27 years old. So maybe you can try to find it online and go delve deeper inside in this topic. So our next speaker is Gal-Or. Gal-Or is a social media influencer, and he's the founder of White China, and that platform is one of the most famous platform in China in social media. It has more than 100 million followers on all the social platforms, and it manages 50 creators from different countries. Raz graduated from Peking University. He was named as 30 under 30 in China. And I'm sure many of you already know a lot about it. So let's welcome Ram to share some experience he has in China regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Sinoism. Thank you. Thank you. Nas. Ozzy, you're here? Add him as a speaker. Yeah. Okay, sorry, it's a technical issue. Our technician is adding us as a speaker now.
No problem.
Okay, Oz, please show your face.
Yeah. Can you guys see me now?
Yes, we can see you now. Yeah.
Yes, great. So hi, everyone. Thank you, Benjamin, for inviting me on this incredibly important and significant forum. I'm really happy to be part of this and all the incredible speakers. I learn so much from you guys every day. You're inspiring me and my journey in China. As Benjamin said, I'm from Israel. I'm running a big media company that creates content in China, mainly about life in China of foreigners like me. At the same time, we also create content about other cultures to the Chinese audiences to show them the different cultures, including Israel. And I've been doing this for the past 5-6 years, and I have a lot of observations about so-called anti-Semitism and anti-Sinoism. A lot of it's very personal. I get attacked on a daily basis, pretty much from the anti-China, anti-Sinoism people across the globe, and from some anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish movements in China and around the world as well. So it's really a big concern, a topic that I care about dearly. And also being honored for me to hear from Mr. Xu, who is a really famous expert in this field, and I wish to communicate with you more about this. I will use my short time here today to quickly cover my experience with this situation and what I think should be done. Like, why is it being done? And then what should be done about it? So first of all, I would like to say that as an Israeli guy, who I've lived in Israel for 13 years, and then in the next 12 years, since I'm 13, I've lived in China. I've speak a few languages, and I try to act as a bridge connecting Chinese and Israeli culture, and also including keeping my Jewish tradition, Jewish knowledge, and also expanding my knowledge in China. Now, as I've been making videos about my life in China, and have lived in China, I have received on social media especially a lot of stereotypes and accusations and hate for me talking positively about China. My topic covers a lot of day-to-day lives of anyone who lives in China, from food, entertainment, travel, language, education. And sometimes when I post these kind of videos on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, I get a lot of haters who accuse me of being a spokesman of the government, of being a so-called, you can call it different kind of anti-Sinoism quotes that I don't want to say now because it's just really terrible to hear. On the other hand, when I create content in China to show Chinese people some cultures from outside, sometimes given my Israeli Jewish identity, I also get a lot of, not a lot, I would say not a lot, but I do get some people who accuse me of being on my Jewish identity, saying that I'm here to control the financial system, to control the media. I'm just here to make money, and we should get the Jews out of China. And these kind of things is something I have to deal with day to day. And I think that's why this forum is so relevant for people like me who are trying to build a bridge and get social media as a bridge, but eventually some of the social media systems create a lot of hate. Now, I believe the main reason, and I'm only going to talk about social media creating hate among young people or any other people related to Jewish people or Chinese people. I believe the reason that I've been seeing that this is happening so much is mainly to the fact that a lot of times social media platforms allow the rise of influential figures who are themselves anti-Semitic or anti-Zionist. Which I mean is that social media is an open platform for anyone to express themselves. However, besides giving voice to positive people trying to build bridges, this is also a platform for people to spread hate. And sadly, social media has been giving power to people to spread hate towards China on YouTube accounts, Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts. And at the same time, there are accounts that spread hate about Judaism in China. And from my observation, it's not a full research, the number of anti-Chinese related accounts is much more than the anti-Jewish in China. So quantity-wise, there's much more anti-Sinoism that I feel around the world, around the globe. It really makes me really sad and upset, and I'm trying to fight it. But at the same time, there's also a few anti-Semitic conceptions that gave power to some social media people that use either WeChat platform to write articles about anti-Judaism. They use platforms like Zhihu, which is the Quora of China, which is a Q&A, question and answer forum. And they use sometimes Weibo, which is kind of Twitter. And these kind of things allow these people to speak out. Now, I think that what you can do is you can obviously try to fight it But the biggest solution that I feel can be done according to my experience is that we need to speak to these platforms, these social media platforms, these Facebook, YouTube, Weibo, Bilibili, Johu. We need to be accountable. Let them help find these people who are breaking the law by hurting people based on their nation, their religion, their ethnicity. And I think there's not enough done by the platforms, because if I just as myself go and try to reply to these haters or people that have, as Mr. Shu said, they have preconceived stereotypes about us, something you can't really change. Some people, you cannot really change their mind about their hate to China or their hate to Judaism or Jewish people. But what you can do is you can minimize their influence on social media. You can not allow them to gain followers and make that a powerful movement that can spread more hate and more disinformation about our nations and religions and cultures. I believe the platforms should be more active in helping track these people who are spreading hate that are completely subjective and emotional and just extremely just dirty, I would even say. And I think if we can be more screening more of these people, we can have more kind of control of this negativity than people like us, like the majority of the people in this forum. Obviously, everyone here spoke, and I'm sure many of the audiences, yes, were positive about both cultures. We're trying to build bridges. We need to get more of the stage. We need to get more traffic. And again, the platforms have one big issue, which we cannot really control now, is that the fact that they're controlled by algorithms, by robots that tell you what you like, because they have AI algorithms to recommend you the content you like. So people already have anti-China ideas are going to be promoted by these platforms, anti-China videos in every day. And the ones who anti-Semitic are going to check out and see more anti-Semitic content. We need to find a way to not let the algorithm spread hate. And that's something that I'm fighting for. And I feel one solution that I suggest for this forum is to try reach out more to these platforms, maybe use other methods to reach out to their leaders and try to get them to take more actions. And I think that could be one solution. There's obviously many other ways to move forward with this. We need more people that are trying to spread positivity about our cultures, people who are trying to fight these anti-Semitic and anti-Sinoism movements like Israel Plan Organization, which is incredible what they do. And thank you, Benjamin, and everyone. But I think if we try to come together and talk to these platforms who host these haters and try to even block some of them, or at least limit their hateful comments, delete some of these unbelievably unnecessary anti-Semitic, even Holocaust comments about Jews. I got comments about my family, and they survived the Holocaust, and some of them also died. My whole great-grandmother's family was killed in Auschwitz. So for me, it's very painful to get these comments. And I'm sure if a Chinese person gets comments about some anti-China stereotypes, it hurts. So I think we need to act together, and I'm here to fight for it and try to be a positive voice, and I'm not gonna stop. So thank you guys for hosting me for this forum, and I wish us all the best in spreading positivity and fighting these anti-Sinoism and anti-Semitic movements and people around the world. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you, Az.
No problem.
Much. And Az is a very popular social media on WeChat and if you know more about this activities, you can check Gal-Or on
Thank you, Judge
social media. Okay.
Benjamin, can I add one more thing? I'm sorry, Benjamin. Can I add one more thing?
Barbara.
Oh.
Okay, Az. You want to add something?
I just want to say that Mr. Shu said something interesting. He said that a lot of the movements around anti-Semitism was built through by big medias, like you can be like big organizations like the BBC or some other influential medias over the years. And now, actually, what's happening these days is that big organizations like the New York Times, BBC, DW, many other, and also some I would even call it some Western Western big influential medias and papers, they are going on the offense, trying to attack people like me who are trying to feature China in the most authentic way. I'm getting featured in articles blaming me for being the mouthpiece of the government, for things like they're just trying to build an image that China has nothing positive and nothing real going on here to their audiences in America, in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, and around the world. And I think these medias are so, it's so hard to fight these huge medias because there's not much they will do to kind of change themselves. So I think we need to be more accountable and more realistic when we listen and read all these media accounts. We need to think twice before we believe whatever these big media say, because they're trying to build a story that's anti-Chinese that is not necessarily true. At the same time, when you hear stories in the big medias about Jews that's negative, I hope people do not right away believe into accusations made right away, and they do more research, spend more time thinking, looking at different perspectives. And I think that's why we need to balance these anti-Chinese big media outlets with some other voices. And that's something that's extremely important also in the future for us to fight it, because especially when it comes to anti-Sinoism and anti-China, wow, this is like a very big force and movement that I really hope we will find a way to balance the views, or else the world will become in a very sad Cold War state sooner or later. Not just, obviously, not just Jewish or Chinese, just generally China and the world. And that's something that I don't want to see happening at all. So I hope, I just wanted to add this point. Thank you guys. I will go offline right now. Thank you for the comments. I got all the comments. I saw it all. Thank you guys so much. I believe we can.
Thank you, As.
Yes.
I'm sure we will have more opportunities to meet As and talk with him next time. Our different topics and different activities maybe next year Solomon Forum. Okay, so next I would like to invite Barbara Pontecorvo, and she's in Rome. She's based in Rome, Italy now. So I give a short introduction about her. The partner at Gal-Or and in Italy, and with a specialty in corporate finance and M&A. She's also facilitating the investment activity between Italy and Israel. On the nonprofit side, she's a Jewish leader in Italy, and she's also actively embedding the anti-Semitism related here. She's also the interestingly, she's the founder and board member of Solomon Business Association. We share the same name. Solomon is a really good name for us. So I'd love to invite her to share with the audience about the anti-Semitism activity and the situation in Europe. Barbara,
thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon and good morning from Italy. It's a true privilege and a great honor to be able to address such a distinguished audience like the Solomon Forum. Let me first express my gratitude to you, Benjamin, for inviting me. My own role is minimal if I compare it to the ones of all of you, but I've always been at the forefront of fights in Italy with my association, Solomon Observatory on Discrimination, that I founded, that I'm leading since 2015. It's a volunteer, no-profit organization for fighting all forms of discrimination. Let me say a few words about Italy and what my country is currently experiencing. Like many other European states, Italy is undergoing a pervasive crisis, started also before pandemic, that concerns not only our economics, but more importantly, our values of all types. Populists and so-called sovereignists and challengers of the establishment will probably run the country, if Mr. Mario Draghi will not remain Prime Minister, and if we will go to elections. The results of all these movements is that prejudices against minorities are growing. We are witnessing an escalation in discrimination and racial phenomena. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic uncertainties around the virus have been weaponized by a range of extremists, conspiracy theorists, and disinformation actors who have sought to propagandize and radicalize online audiences during the global lockdown. Anti-Semitic hate speech is often a common feature of these different threats, with dangerous implications for public safety and for democracy. Anti-Semitism during this terrible hate speech online has become very similar to anti-Zionism. A 2018 Fundamental Rights Agency survey on experiences and perceptions of anti-Semitism among Jews in the EU, in the European nation, found that nearly 9 in 10 respondents considered online anti-Semitism a big problem. 8 in 10 encountered anti-Semitic abuse online. 7 in 10 did not consider Europe safe anymore. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA, working definition on anti-Semitism that has been mentioned by Professor Shushin, that my association brought in Italy and asked the Italian government to adopt, was used to identify channels containing anti-Semitic contents. That's why the IHRA definition is really important, and it has to be adopted not only by the governments, but also by the universities. The IHRA definition of anti-Semitism has been accepted now from almost 30 nations, and it is used by many of them, including the US departments, also to condemn the BDS movement, the movement that asks for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the State of Israel. BDS is the worst face of contemporary anti-Semitism. Almost 3 years ago, one of the main BDS activists has filed criminal charges more than once against me, and I've been one of the first victims of this type of anti-Semite initiatives in the world. All the proceedings, thank God, have been dismissed by the courts in Italy. The situation was very unpleasant for me. I'm a lawyer and I had criminal charges against me. But if they thought, the BDS movement thought that I would be scared or even intimidated, they were wrong. I've continued stronger than before my battle, which is our battle today, and I will keep it on till the very end. Perhaps the biggest defeat of BDS last year was the signing of the Abraham Accords. Silences the myth that there is a regional Arab-Israeli conflict and that the Jewish state is unable to make peace with the Arab world. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan have all signed peace agreements with Israel, and many more are to come. Remember that BDS was built on the foundation of the Arab boycott and the anti-Semitic program initiated in 1945 by the Arab League, which prohibited its members from any relationship with any Jew who lived in then so-called Palestine, and after in the State of Israel. To underscore the failure of both the Arab boycott and the BDS, the Abraham Accords led to massive new investments in Israel by Arab countries. They understand how much Israel and its people must contribute to progress and development in the region. Despite the incredible success in innovation in different sectors that made the State of Israel the startup nation, Israel still faces the threat of BDS in an equality critical arena. The struggle for hearts, minds, and souls of millions of students, intellectuals, journalists, politicians, professors, musicians. In 2020, the student bodies of 3 major US universities voted to support BDS-style divestments in Israel. In early 2020, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights created a list of 112 companies with links to Israel communities through the Green Line, effectively creating a boycott list of companies of Jewish properties. When the Trump administration brokered the Abrahamic Accords, many comments were focused only on the immediate causes, particularly the shared fear of Iran. This is not enough to explain what happened with the Abraham Accords. This accord discards 2 central principles of the Arab nationalism: the intrinsic rejection of a Jewish state as a colonialist presence in the region, and the idea that the Arab-Israel peace must be left to the Palestinian demands. The rejection of a Jews as indigenous inhabitants of the region has been central to the Palestinian nationalism. The Charter of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, stated that Zionism was a colonial establishment and that its beneficiaries did not have the right to remain once the victor armies has restored the Arab countries all over the land. From now on, all the Arab countries joining the agreements signaled that they intend to pursue their national interests and seek alliances with the Jewish state without the need for a pan-Arab strategy. History happened, not the rise of a new threat, which existed before and which we will continue to call on the horizon, but an historical shift in perception in which the notion that Israel is a foreign plant has forever lost credibility. It's a new day in Middle East, let me say, and no dose of nostalgia will change that. Let me finish with the words of declaration of the Abraham Accords, which according to me are very significant. We, the undersigned, recognize the importance of maintaining and strengthening peace in Middle East and around the world, based on mutual understanding and coexistence, as well as respect for human dignity and freedom, including religious freedom. We encourage efforts to promote interfaith and intercultural dialogue to advance a culture of peace among the 3 Abrahamic religions and all humanity. We believe that the best way to address challenges is through cooperation and dialogue, and that developing friendly relations among states advance the interest of lasting peace in Middle East and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. Under a short, and I would like to have our next speaker, Ugoji, Dr. AZ, Dr. AZ is the founder of AZ Foundation. It's a non-profit organization UN, and she's the founder of Repair Earth and many other NGOs. She's also an expert on anti-terrorism and cybersecurity. As a Jewish lawyer, she has always, combating anti-terrorism, anti-Semitism, and protecting the rights of protecting the peace. And she's also the member of Peace and the Security Council at the United Nations. She also chaired a very high-level conference in UN in 2014. Actually, she is now on our Zoom, but she did that before. But she did a video before, so I prefer to use the video instead of let her to speak because it's so early for her. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. So let's see. Yeah.
So first, well, I'd like to first and foremost like to say a huge thank you to you, Benjamin, founder of Israel Plan Organization, for inviting me to participate in the 2021 Solomon Forum, and more particularly to discuss this timely topic, combating anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. My name is Ugoji Eze. I'm attorney by profession, international lawyer, part of civil society at the United Nations in New York. I focus primarily on anti-Semitism. In 2014, I hosted an event, Anti-Semitism, a Threat to International Peace and Security, in which I spoke of the emergence of anti-Semitism, more particularly in Europe. And I did say that anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic incidents will come to the United States. And I'm sorry to say that my prediction proved to be correct. There is a need to outsmart anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is an ancient hatred that has taken diverse kinds from time immemorial. It is back in the open globally. As hatred and indeed distrust of the Jews around the world, it begs the question of what causes it and how best to respond to it. It is indeed on the rise on all fronts, namely new anti-Semitism on the left, classic anti-Semitism on the right, and anti-Semitism of Islamic extremists. On the one hand, while we speak about anti-Semitism, we must also speak about the rise of anti-Zionists. The recent shootings on the 16th of March, 2021, at the 3 Atlanta spas resulted in the death of 6 people, of whom were women of Asian descent. This tragic and horrific loss of life occurred amid a recent wave of attacks against Asian Americans. There's a long history of racist rhetoric, physical and psychological attacks against Asian Americans. Since the commencement of the COVID-19 global pandemic, there has been over 3,000 hate crimes and incidents against Asian Americans. If I may quote from the late Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, I quote, "Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding to deeper darkness, to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Hate multiplies hate, violence multiplies violence, and toughness multiplies toughness in a descending spiral of destruction." End of quote. Violence against Asian American women sadly echoes numerous horrific experiences of African Americans, Native Americans, Latino Americans, and other minority women and other marginalized communities. The systematic sexism that haunts Asian American women also haunts Black women and other women of color. Any hate crimes against all women must be condemned, and the perpetrators must be brought to justice. My organization, Renew Earth, stands firmly in solidarity with the Asian American community, just as we are in solidarity with the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and the Black community, and any other community that is a victim of systemic racism, sexism, and any other system of inequality. There is a need for collaboration between the Asian American, Jewish, and African American communities. Silence is complicity. We need to speak out, unite, and walk hand in hand with our sisters in all communities. As the late Dr. Martin Luther King said, I quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. End of quote. As regards anti-Semitism, the bleeding question, or the begging question is, how can we deal with the ongoing onslaught of anti-Semitism? I believe, for one, there's a need to reduce the stress associated with it. We need to be optimistic namely surviving and thriving. We must not above all lose sight that we live in an era where the majority of Jews do not live under regimes that persecute. Bishkam, the ultimate answer is anxiety. Namely, we need to adopt a trusting attitude, knowing that God is indeed going to remove all and will be an everlasting presence in our midst. The Torah teaches that the success of any of our endeavors is God's providence and indeed blessings. We need to counter anti-Semitism with positivity, purpose, and indeed pride. As King Solomon had said in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25, I quote, "If there is anxiety in your heart, quash it." But the working definition of anti-Semitism as espoused by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is indeed a non-legal binding statement, was adopted in May 2016 by the IHRA plenary in Romania. I quote, "Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews," end of quote. The late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory has described anti-Semitism as a virus. He stated in, I quote, "the future tense, the new anti-Semitism, what is and how do we deal with it?" The Jewish Chronicle of November 2007. He said, "The best way of understanding it is to see it as a virus. How do the viruses survive and flourish? By mutating. Anti-Semitism mutates, and in doing so, defeats the immune system set up by a culture to protect themselves against hatred," end of quote. The mutation of hate against the Jews historically has been in three stages. Firstly, the classical and the Middle Ages, where religion was used against the Jews, namely Judaism is enemy of the true religion. Then in the 19th century, where science was employed, namely the inferior Jewish races infecting the Aryan race. And finally, in the 20th century, from the human rights dimension, namely Jews violates human rights. Hatred exists in the mind of the hater, not the hated. There is an inherent need to avoid internalizing anti-Semitism, and above all, believing that by changing one's perception of one's Jewish heritage will solve anti-Semitism. That is not the case. I, for one, believes that one can indeed eradicate, to some extent, anti-Semitism by teaching the world to avoid an inner void and by embracing God's mission for all of humanity. There is a need to be open about one's Jewish identity. That in itself benefits both Jews and indeed other minority. Encountering hate, for example, the American Asian communities. And we must firmly believe that anti-Semitism will indeed be eradicated eventually. It begs the question, how does one countermeasure anti-Semitism? How does one respond to negative rhetoric that undermines Jews and indeed their safety? In short, what strategy would indeed serve as a countermeasure? The French essayist Michel de Montaigu certainly put it where he says, "There is as much difference between us as ourselves as there is between us and others." Possible solutions, which I believe in the way forward in the 21st century of encountering anti-Semitism are, firstly, a public campaign to counter anti-Semitism. Secondly, there's an inherent need to publicly label people as anti-Semitism or enemies, which is indeed counterproductive. Slow to shame and quick to engage is far more productive, and indeed, it should be the order of the day. We need to condition society to bring out the best in people rather than highlight the negative aspects of people. Education, I believe, is a powerful tool, more particularly for the younger generation. We need to bring out self-discipline. We need to bring out self-discipline, proper character trait, and above all, the awareness that all human beings are indeed created to do good. It is also imperative that Jews live in harmony and promote their interests together. Jewish mysticism espouses that God responds positively to Jewish unity. At the outset of the COVID-19 global pandemic in 2020, in which the virus was predominantly detected in China, it caused a great deal of hatred towards people of Asian descent. there's a need to educate the media and to combat negative rhetoric towards Asian